We're very fortunate one Thursday a month to have Joel Connelly of SeattlePI.com and Mike Seeley of the Seattle Weekly here with us. Go to the website, SeattlePI.com or SeattleWeekly.com, or pick up the Weekly on the newsstand. You're going to learn an awful lot, and then you're going to ask a bunch of questions, and that's how much better can a citizen be? Okay, Joel. How to fight Arizona's misguided immigration law. This is a big, big issue. It's not just about immigration. This is your column of April the 29th, I think it is. Some years back, Representative Doc Hastings hosted a town meeting in Okanagan. The crowd seemed to be comprised of folks with furrowed foreheads and pursed lips. They were demanding deportation of illegals, and Doc was doing nothing to disabuse them. Next quote. A longtime Okanagan orchardist businessman, Nick Kane, stepped outside on a cigarette break and sadly shook his head at what he'd just heard. Next quote. Don't the people in there realize whose labor made it possible to have a multi-billion dollars in central Washington? Have they been in the fields or backing plants, or the backing plants? I think what I was hearing that orchardists say is that we need the illegals here because legal workers won't do the job.
Well, the illegals have built the agriculture, Mexican immigrants, legal and illegal, have built the agricultural economy of the Columbia and the Yakima basins. Many illegals built all of those houses that you see when you fly into Phoenix, all of those suburbs. Somebody had to do the drywall work. The Imperial Valley of California supplies 50 to 60% of our agricultural products are vegetables in the winter, and about half of the people that harvest those vegetables are illegals. You have again and again and again throughout the American West economies that have been supported by the illegals, while at the same time you have people wanting to round them up and send them home, and while you have an enforcement that seems to be directed at the bottom toward young people seeking the American dream and sneaking into the country to pursue it, and not against the employers that rather ruthlessly exploit them.
Okay, Mike, what should we do? We've got a law that we know is being violated. What should we do here in the state of Washington? Should we send illegal aliens home? Should we send their employers who know that they're illegal with them?
All roads, to me, lead to federal immigration reform, and that's why we saw, I think, hundreds of thousands of people in the streets over the weekend demonstrating, not only advocating for that, but as kind of a reaction to Arizona's law, which to me amounts to racial profiling of anyone, legal or illegal, by police officers. But we need sweeping immigration reform. We need to make it easier for people who are contributing to this country, if they're illegal, to be legal.
Why should we in Washington have any say or even care about what they do in Arizona?
I'll tell you why. Because, I mean, Mexican immigrants, or immigrants from anywhere for that matter, South America, they make their way up to Washington eventually. Many of them do. I mean, as Joel's column illustrated, they're going to go to where the work is. And we did a story a couple years back on immigration agents being on the ferry line up to San Juan County and the islands up there, and the locals being absolutely livid that they were busting illegal immigrants because that was the cheap labor in San Juan County. So, yeah, Mexican immigrants are all the way up.
Basically,
up
the
the
people of
border.
San Juan County wanted the ability to be able to abuse people by paying them less than what the minimum wage was.
I don't know what the pay scale was, but they certainly, they were kind of had kind of a live and let live attitude. They'd taken these people into their community. The people evidently were grateful for it. However, whatever wages they were paying was kind of beside the point, both to the people who were getting busted and to the residents of San Juan County.
I mean, you have a situation where somebody like presidential candidate Mitt Romney talks about the borders being out of control on the one hand. Well, who does the gardening on Mitt Romney's estates on the other? Who provides the nannies for various people who have failed to become Democratic Attorney Generals of the United States? Again, they are needed, even as in the way they are scorned. And you kind of think about this country that has been built by immigrants. The first generation to come into the Yakima Valley have proven to be some splendid citizens, including a fair number of active Republicans. And beyond that, I can look back to copies of the Chicago Post and the Chicago Tribune in the 1850s, and until the end of the 19th century, talking about the Irish as being drunken sots and criminals.
Hey,
and
you're talking about my people now. So.
I'm talking about
Me too, and that's kind of true.
me too, and me and you three. That all of the stereotypes that I heard these screechy. I spent an hour with John Carlson on KVI on Friday. All of the stereotypes being raised by these people with their screechy voices that called in are things that were once associated with our people.
Well, you know, you were talking about the 1850s. We're going to have to come way sooner than that. Let's come to 1912. This is the USS President Lincoln from Germany arriving at Ellis Island May 30th, 1912. Let's go to the next graphic and go ahead and click one more, because what we have right there, you see that? That's number 6. Is that Lars Adolfsson? Anyway, this is our director's grandfather, May the 30th, 1912. And the reason that we bring this in is that, you know, you can actually find this was legal immigration, but let's go to the next click, because this is really interesting. This is a medical certificate from the doctor who was German, who had to certify something. He had to certify that he'd made a personal examination of each of the aliens named, and that the foregoing list or manifest sheets, 29 in number, and everybody there was in good mental and physical condition. If that was all that was needed, aside from being able to get there, but if that was all that was needed, would we be able to take care of our immigration problems? If we had some doctor say, yeah, you're okay.
I wonder, I think the comprehensive solution has to be something in the form of a guest worker program, some way for those who have been around here for a while illegally to gain legal status, but perhaps with a penalty. What we need to do is work out society's compromises in accordance with the values of this country. And part of the values of this country are its inclusiveness, are its welcoming of immigrants. And there has always been this attitude. I mean, again, you go back to what it was, people calling into KVI or sending obscene messages to me on email after I wrote this column. They sound very, very much like the know-nothings that were harassing the good French priests that founded the University of Notre Dame in the 1840s and early 1850s. It is an ugly strain that is, you know, the darker side of the American dream that has run through the history of this country, and it ought to be resisted.
We're going to come back to this in just a moment, because I've got a question for you, Mike, based on San Juan County. Once a month right here in Public Exposure, Sound Month in Review welcomes Joel Connelly, SeattlePI.com, Mike Seeley, Seattle Weekly. Man, do these guys know an awful lot, because they have to be there. They're right on the cutting edge of everything that's happening in our communities. Mike, you were talking about San Juan County just a minute ago, and there was another thing in what I heard. I thought I heard you saying that the people of San Juan County felt like that the minimum wage was too high.
Again, I don't want to talk about what they're paying these people, because frankly, I don't know. But you know, I think they probably want what we want and what we've been talking about on this show, which is to extend, you know, these centuries-old American values to people who've come here and are willing to put in an honest days, weeks, years, decades worth of work. And that's going to require sweeping reform. It's going to require, you know, the government and law enforcement to maybe not look the other way, but at least make concessions to folks who've already been here and working hard for several years, even if they got into the country illegally. And let's not forget, a lot of these people are fleeing a crazy amount of violence at the border in Mexico due to what's going on with drug cartels. They're fleeing for their own safety, because they consider crossing into the border in the United States a much safer proposition than staying in Juarez or wherever a lot of these folks are coming from.
We must remember a substantial number of them have died, more than 500 drowning in the All-American Canal just north of the border in California. Something like 2,000 in the last 10 years have starved or died of dehydration, or sometimes been killed by their coyotes in the Mexican desert.